as I was telling you, as long as a year ago he knew he might have to use, because you can't do that to someone who married you to your wife and gave your title to your book and baptized your two children and all that. You can't really say, you can't do what Henry does to Falstaff and say, "I know thee not, old man. Fall to thy prayers."
No, you can't. Of course you can't. And the big question is not what Hillary Clinton may do over the next few months with this information, but what the Republicans would do with it over a long period of time in the lead up to a presidential election if Obama were actually the candidate.
Yes, well, if they're smart, they won't do anything. But there have been people in and around the McCain campaign, or at least people associated with it, if not employed by it, who've tried to make something of it, just as they try and make a point about the senator's middle name and always say Barack Hussein Obama and so forth, and who've managed to get into circulation this extraordinary rumor that he's a secret Muslim. I think one of the tests McCain will have to pass is actually the opposite one, is to show that he doesn't want to go that route.
Oddly enough, you made the point earlier about the number of skeletons in the closet. Jeremiah Wright is far from the only one, is he?
Well, there are two rules, I would think, if you want to say you're from Chicago, but you're completely new and a whole new different kind of politician. Two things you shouldn't do. One is ethno-racist religious demagogy, which is a big problem in especially south side of Chicago, and the other is shady property developers. And Senator Obama's already paid back the money, which is what you're supposed to do, but he did seem to get himself involved with a very dubious character called Tony Roscoe, including, in a sense, cooperating with him on getting the note paid for the mortgage on his house. And the ramifications of that aren't fully clear to me, but Mr. Roscoe appears to have borrowed the money that he lent to the senator from another rather odd businessman of Iraqi provenance in London. All of this is a bad time for that sort of stuff to be happening because, as I say, it doesn't fit very well with the idea of the fresh, clean, new, unpolluted candidate.
The other side of that Tony Roscoe deal, where he assisted Barack Obama in buying his Chicago mansion, is that he bought the block of land next door in a kind of a package deal which lowered the cost to Barack Obama of the mansion by about $300,000. And I'm wondering if anyone is referring to that as corruption.
They're referring to it as, the great American euphemism for this is the appearance of a conflict of interest, because at the same time as doing this favour, the gentleman was also giving money to the Obama campaign. That money's been given back, I gather. I'm not quite sure what's to become of the personal benefit that the senator reaped from it.
Yes, I mean, he has actually described the deal as being, on his part, boneheaded. Once again, no. It sounds very unlike a man who is prepared for or about to become a presidential candidate. I mean, all of those things are usually completely cleaned out by the time they reach this point, aren't they?
Well, that's why I speculated earlier that I don't think he thought he was going to do this well this time, because otherwise he and his otherwise very smooth and professional advisors, people like David Axelrod, would have got all this taken care of and wrapped up a long time back. I think they've just been as amazed as most people have by the extraordinary, I hate the word, but I can't just for the moment think of a better one, meteoric success of this campaign.
Now, you've referred to Hillary Clinton in the recent past as a political zombie who could only be stopped by a silver bullet or a stake through the heart. The question is, could she actually be handed the candidacy because of these growing doubts over Barack Obama?
Well, yes, and now I'm sorry to say that that other cliche of mine has now become almost a commonplace. Almost everyone now refers to her as the undead. And so forth. But that's because she doesn't know how to stop and doesn't know the meaning of the word quit. In some ways admirable. Actually, she's handled herself very solidly throughout this campaign. But it drives people up the wall because she doesn't have enough popular votes. She doesn't have enough delegates. She doesn't look now as if she's got enough superdelegates. But she's forcing everyone to go on and go on and go on with this. And while no one can see how she can win, no one can imagine her dropping out either. So it's beginning to make people very nervous. As I said to you earlier, I fear that what she's secretly thinking and her advisors are thinking, and I know some of them have been saying, is that let's not say anything about the Jeremiah Wright business. Let's not appear to appeal at all to white fears. Let's not do that. But let's just hope we do benefit from them. And not just white ones, by the way. Hispanic voters are much more likely to tell pollsters in round terms they don't want a black candidate. They don't want a black police chief. They don't want a black mayor. They don't want a black governor. They sure don't want a black president. They didn't come to America for that. Mrs. Clinton has been doing very well among Hispanic voters, shall I say. It was a bit of a blow to her this week, therefore, to argue on the other side of the case for a second, but Governor Bill Richardson, the nation's most senior Hispanic politician, endorsed Barack Obama. But we don't know how many votes he can bring with him.
He is himself a super delegate, isn't he? And there's now it does look like he may have influence, but there are others as well, apparently, who a key group that include Jimmy Carter, Al Gore, and Nancy Pelosi, none of whom particularly like the Clintons, and you might think will put their weight behind Obama if his candidacy is not too dirty.
Well, that's right. And you should also mention John Edwards, who piled up quite a few delegates and hasn't yet made an endorsement and may want to wait until the convention. The significance, I think, of the Richardson endorsement was this, as well as having been quite an important governor and having run himself for the nomination. He was, I think, a member of both Clinton administrations. Anyway, he was a fairly senior member of the Clinton administration. And had, it is said, and was believed, promised, if he didn't endorse Clinton, at least not to endorse Obama. So his defection was quite a serious blow to morale in that way.
Christopher, I have to ask you this. Have you reached a point yet where you're even considering a vote for John McCain?
I would consider it, yes. I mean, he's a serious man, and a man with a lot of character and actually a lot of charm. The sort of person, though, I would prefer to say there should be more of in the Senate. I'm not sure that a guy like that, as volatile, shall we say, as McCain, should be president of anywhere.
Well, I mean, one of the problems he has, of course, is a considerable animosity from sections of his own party, and whether he'll be able to mobilise the Republican base is an open question, isn't it?
Well, and just to be fair, well, not just to be, but also to be objective. I mean, since we're talking about inflammatory preachers, I mean, he's been endorsed by a man called the Reverend John Hagee of Texas, who says that the Pope is the Antichrist, basically runs a crusade to denounce Catholicism, and by another, even more extraordinarily named Reverend called Rod Parsley, who thinks that America was partly created by God to destroy the Muslim religion. So there's going to be a lot of scope for people like myself, whose book, I hope, The Portable Atheist, is already on your screen, certainly in fine bookstores everywhere, and whose subtitle of his other book is How Religion Poisons Everything. All the venom in this election has been injected by men of the cloth.
It just gets better and better, Christopher Hitchens. I've got to ask you finally, have you reached a point yet where you've got any clue as to who might win at the end of the year? No. No, you can't get me to do that. No, I didn't suspect you would.
And actually, it's been a great. The best thing about this year has actually been the relationship of egg to face to pundit in the United States. I don't think there's anyone who's got anything right since New Hampshire in any substantive way. And it's been wonderful for those of us who don't like the opinion poll industry and who think that it's been leeching democracy out of the process by telling us all how we're going to vote, how this time, every time they've told us, we've voted the other way. That's been very cheering. You
won't find many arguments on this side of the Pacific. We'll have to leave you for now, Christopher Hitchens. It is a very early hour there, I know, and we thank you very much indeed for taking the time to talk to us.
No, it's a pleasure. Thanks for having me.